Hello and welcome to episode 48 of the Large Format Photography Podcast. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Andrew Bartram, I think just made a noise deliberately, and Erik Mathy. Hello Andrew.
Hello Simon.
Hello Erik.
Hello Simon.
And we don't have a guest this week. It's just the three of us, and the reason for that is we wanted to do a bit of a catch-up, do some emails, and, we haven't really had an opportunity to do that because we've been having so many great guests. So those people are looking forward to another great guest. Sorry, you've just got the three of us this week.
Three of us and the voices in our heads.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just wish to say thank you to Nico. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his name because I couldn't do it last time, and why do I think I could do it this time? I can't. So that's Nico from his photography channel. And actually, we got a mention on his show the last time it was out, and he almost remembered the three of our names. Almost. But he did try. You could just see like going round in his head. And I was on the LFPP last week and it was really good, and I really enjoyed being on with the guys. But thank you anyway. I mean, the effort was there, so thanks. And I also wish to thank Andrew and Erik because anybody that listened to the back end of last week's or the last show that we did will notice that I disappeared because my PC overheated. And something went wrong. It wasn't a catastrophic failure, but it was enough to actually kill audio. So I could actually see there were things going on, but the guys could not hear me, and I could not hear them. My computer...
Which was useful, because we could just talk so much smack about you in your absence. And
this is very true. But although obviously I went back to do the editing, thinking, what am I going to have to cut? And I didn't have to cut anything, because you guys were just great. So thank you very much for your efforts on the last show. Okay, so this week, we're going to go over to the Fens and catch up on all the amazing things that Andrew's been up to.
Well, I don't know really. What have I been up to? Not a lot, really. I don't normally suffer from apathy, but I've been. I don't know whether it's just this blasted lockdown or what it is, really. Or we see the light at the end of the tunnel. I was even jabbed, and someone even suggested I've got post-jab blues or something. I don't know what it is. So I'm normally really excited about all things photographic and projects and bubbling away. And I just lost all motivation. However, having said that, I have exposed some dry plates, the awesome J-Lane dry plates, and I know that Erik's been playing with these as well, so I'll just talk a little bit about those. So I bought some, well, I've had them a while, some sixth plate, sixth, S-I-X-T-H, whatever that is.
Say
anyway,
that when you're on your second whiskey.
Sixth plate, sixth plates, which is, and these are to fit inside the Rolleiflex, which I've talked about before, so it's not large format.
That is I just have to say again for the millionth time, that is a sexy setup.
It is sexy.
The dry plate film holders, sheet holders on the back of the little rolly. Oh, so good.
These are really good. You load them up, and of course you can load them up under a red light. And then when you come to use them, you turn this little brass key on the back of each individual holder, and they're spring-loaded, and the emulsion and the plate moves forward by, I don't know, half a centimetre or so into the film plane. It's ingenious.
Yeah.
And then when you want to, obviously you have to take the dark slide out first, otherwise it won't spring forward. But then you pull it back, lock the little key thing, and drop your dark slide back in. So I had
it's essentially a combination of the film holders and a specific door. Like it replaces the entire back of the room.
Oh yeah, you have to. You take the door off, or the door just comes off with a little catch thing. You know, there's no violence involved. You just turn a little catch and it just pops off. So you normally buy a kit of these things with a door and the holders. You can buy a ground glass as well if you want to compose on the ground glass, but I haven't done that. I can't see.
That's not half the fun. Like that's the whole point of the TLR, right?
I'm not sure why I'd want to do that. So I had some ISO 25 plates, which are, Jason says, are super contrasty, and they are quite contrasty. But I developed them, and I shot in fairly bright sun as well. So nothing I was doing was really going to tame the contrast. But I took a picture of my son and his girlfriend, and a picture of my wife and her mum on Easter Sunday when we had them in the garden. And I developed in ID11, but not full strength, as Jason recommends. I diluted it 1+1 and didn't agitate much, and the results look printable. They're okay. So that's a success.
Yeah,
But
it took me. Did you end up doing a couple of runs, or did you just shoot them straight at 25 and go for it? Like,
No,
because for me, I had to
I've
do
used,
some experimentation.
I've used these ones before, and I scientifically look up into the air, into the sun. Well, not into the sun, because that would be madness. But I assess the level of UV light scientifically by guessing. And then we're in the UK, so it's never that bright. So ISO 25 would normally start at 6. And then when I photographed some things in my wife's potting shed, I think I might have even rated it at 1.5 or something ridiculous.
Okay.
You know? And I made prints from the potting shed pictures. I had to go down quite low on the contrast ratings, but I think I was just developed those neat in ID11 then. So I think diluting the developer down a bit, and I just kept watching it under my little red torch, and yeah, they're okay. And then I went out with some large format plates a while ago now, I think probably before the last podcast, but we just haven't talked about it because we don't do this chittery chattery stuff anymore, do we? So I went out into the fens, my good old Fenlands, and I thought, I'll try that in that projector lens, that Lights projector lens f210 f5.6. I'll try that out, and on the front of it I'll put my Lee filter holder with a rubber band.
I'm shaking my head.
Why are you shaking your head?
A 210 5.6. It's a 200.
Well, whatever it is.
It's a 200 3.6.
Oh well, whatever.
There you go.
I don't remember what it is. Anyway, that bloody projector lens that I bought. So I had that on there, and I had the glass plate, and I had the rubber band filter holder because I needed to cut the light down, and I think I put, I don't know what it was, maybe a 3 or 4 stop neutral density in there, and I thought I'd given this enough exposure. These were ISO 2 plates, and I was rating these at 0.6 on my Gaussian meter, but maybe I wasn't pointing the meter in the right area, because I've got quite a thin image, I have to say. So I don't know. I can probably make a print with that. There is certainly detail on. I think it's just purely an overall low exposure. So I haven't had as much luck with the ISO 2 plates, I think, because I'm just not giving it enough light, you know?
Yeah, well, you have the neutral density filter, so next time you just use...
Maybe I just don't bother with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were talking before the show, you had some tips on metering for these things, didn't you, Erik?
Yeah, well, not the ISO 2s. I've been doing the 25s. Mm-hmm. And I got those, now I realize, with quite a bit of naivete, because I was like, 25 ASA. I'll just shoot them at 25 ASA. Doop, 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 doop. Wrong. I did shoot them at 25 ASA, me doing normal. I shoot at those speeds all the time with X-ray film. So I just figured it'd be like shooting X-ray film, orthochromatic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they came out thin as all get out. And I was like, okay, maybe it's the developer, because full disclosure, due to like the sort of the limitations of the new house and just not having quite things set up right now, I'm just using Cinestill monobath. Because I don't have the ability to do anything under a red light. There's no room that's safe to do red light development or tray development. So essentially, I've just taken a 4x5 daylight tank, blacked out the top where the chemicals usually go in, and then I just put the Cinestill in there, use a light-proof tent, film-changing tent, and just insert one plate at a time inside that and just monobath it until it's done, and then put it in the rinse, and then put it into a drying box. And that works for me. So I know just monobaths are a completely different beast than normal chemistry. I've never used a monobath before, and they're super, super temperature sensitive. Like pushing and pulling film in a monobath isn't about the chemical strength. It's the temperature. right? It's you either are in like the 60s to the mid to high 70s or somewhere in between, and it's all about temperature. So it's like, maybe I'm just screwing up the chems and the time. No, it's UV, like you said, Andrew. It's the UV light. And in the end, I chatted with Jason, and Nick Brandreth also reached out, and Nick is just like, yeah, all dry plates, pull them 2 stops, shoot them at 6 ASA, no matter what, and place that zone 5 in your shadows, no matter what. And that's just what you do.
So you point your meter at a mid-gray subject. You point your meter at a shadow area.
Yep.
Which, without any zone system-y correction, would then place the shadow on zone 5. If you were doing zone system stuff, you'd stop down. You'd give it less exposure to place your shadow, wouldn't you?
Yep.
But don't do that. So you're just giving it. So that was interesting, your comment about monobath, because I developed some film in monobath and didn't like the results and poured it down the sink in sheer frustration.
Oh, you shouldn't do that because it contains silver, and that's terrible for the environment.
I didn't pour it down the sink. I put it in the bottle, and it's going to the dump. So my understanding was that if you just extend the time, you're not really doing anything to the development.
Correct.
You're just giving it extra fix. You can't do any harm to it. In fact, some films might need that much extra time.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you wanted to alter the development gradient of the film, so make the contrast gradient steeper, give it more contrast. That's just temperature then.
Yeah, absolutely. They have a little guide on the Cinestill website where essentially if you're pulling the film, you do this. You push the film, you do this. And
didn't read that.
Yeah, well. And they have suggested times for different films. And also the agitation becomes super important then too, because essentially what you're doing, if we think about it, is you're fixing and you're developing at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So if you develop too fast and fix too fast, right, then it's going to be thin because it's come through too quickly. It's fixed too fast, and you have a thin negative, right? So that temperature, apparently the combination of temperature and agitation, because they also have very specific agitation methods where if you're pushing or pulling, like there's constant agitation, which for them is like an initial agitation of 30 seconds and then 15 seconds every minute. And there's no agitation, which is like initial agitation of 10 seconds. And then like agitation of 5 seconds once a minute, like that's their minimal agitation. And so they have all these combinations, which is essentially just trying to make it so your fix and your developer happen at the right ratio of time.
I think it's like anything else, isn't it? It's just experience and playing with it. And the only reason I bought some of the stuff in the first place was to accompany my lab box that I never opened. It was a microphone stand, wasn't it, for a long time? So I'd got the lab box and I'd got the monobath, and then I sold the lab box to Rachel Brewster Wright. And I should have just given her the monobath, shouldn't I? I didn't think about it. I found it in the darkroom.
I'm sure that if I was developing it with ID or HC110 or like whatever, and I have HC110 and I have a couple of developers floating around, my results might be better. Like, I don't know. But and I haven't digitized any of my images so far, but the negatives look promising. And the other catch is, of course, I'm shooting this with one of my modified lens. So the results are never going to be quite what it's hard to tell what's the lens and what's the bath, what's the chemical, and what the hell is the dry plate. Because
I made the mistake. Well, because I shot that dry plate on using the projector lens, which I knew was sharp somewhere, maybe in the middle. Right. I don't know.
It's razor thin.
Yeah. But then I went and put some back tilt on it as well to try and throw, and I made a whole fuzzy mess of a picture. Really,
you're a glutton for punishment, is what you are with that.
I should have gone out. I should have gone out and just listened to what I normally tell myself, was to only change one thing at a time. You know,
you pulled an Erik. I'm rubbing off on you
instead of dicking about with too many different changes at once. So that was that was that. Apart from that, I've started clearing the garage out because that's where my darkroom is, and in order to make my darkroom bigger to host one-on-one workshops at some point when the pandemic allows and we all feel safe, got to extend the darkroom by well, in reality, probably no more than a meter or so, but that'll just be enough to do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
a meter, like in depth, in width, in both.
Well, I have the at the moment I have a central corridor, and then dry side on the left, wet side on the right, and I'm just pushing those two sides apart more, so someone can stand in there with me, and I'm not kind of breathing down their neck as I would be at the moment, in a kind of weird way, you know. So, but I've had this darkroom built in my garage for nearly 20 years. And it's full of crap, basically, you know. And I've got stuff on the outside of the garage, and I don't know what to. I'm trying to get. I can't get rid of much of the stuff, and you know, so a lot of it's up in the spare bedroom. So I've got that, and it's going to be. I've got to get some wood to make more of a frame, extend the frame. I've got some wiring to do. It's never had running water, so I haven't got to worry about that. Yeah. I've got to move the lighting and move the vents and stuff. So that's and I should be excited about it because.
Are you adding water in? I mean, are you putting in?
No, it's too complicated. Well, it probably wouldn't be complicated if I spoke to a professional, but I'm too tight to pay anyone to do anything. So. Yeah, so the electrics was fairly easy because I had a consumer unit, you know, a distribution board inside the garage, and it had a spare way on it. So I just. You know, I'm sure you're supposed to have some kind of electrical qualifications to do this, you know. But I haven't burnt the house down in 20 years, so I guess it's all right. So that's it, really. And
all of a sudden, there's an argument for a detached garage.
Oh, it is detached. Yeah, it's not actually detached.
Oh, well, then
so I figured if it went up in smoke, if it went up in flames, all it would do is take out next door's garage as well, which is actually connected to their house, so it would burn their house down, but it wouldn't burn mine down.
Win.
So that's it, really. So that's it. That's how exciting. And I've been reading quite a lot and chilling, you know. I was a bit ill after my vaccine, as Simon was, I think. But other than that, it's just not very exciting, is it? You know, I'm going on a photo walk this week with a mate and taking a large format camera and a 6x17 back. So I'm hoping that might get me excited.
Nice.
So that's it. I'll stop talking now because that's it, really. Over to you, Simon.
I mean. The question of, like, you know, the mental block / fugue of COVID. You know, I've certainly felt it. I'm shooting glass plates just to try to shoot something. Yeah. You know, but I think it's been really ungodly difficult to find enthusiasm for much of anything recently. You know, because it's like we sort of seem to start to come out of, and there's like a light at the end of the tunnel, and then a bunch of people stop wearing masks or do something stupid, or there's a new variant that comes out of nowhere that's catching, and we're not sure if the vaccine will handle it, and we just go right back down. Like, you know, it's every time there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel, it gets a little bit further back for reasons both social and scientific, and it's brutal. You know, it's really brutal, especially because photography sort of requires us, even if we're alone, it still requires us to be out typically doing something. For most of us who aren't studio photographers, but like photographers, right?
I mean, I've been quite vocal about wanting to spend more time doing printing, and of course I can't even do that now. I've dismantled the bloody darkroom, so you know, so that should be a spur to get on and do it, shouldn't it? Really, and it will be. I will get my finger out of my and get on with it. But I'm also missing. And I'm not a very sociable person, really. You know, I'm a bit of an old grump, but I do like going out and meeting fellow analog photographers. And I did it quite a lot, you know, before lockdown. I'd go into Cambridge and meet with a couple of mates who'd go in most Saturdays and we'd have a wander. You know, I'd go on Polaroid walks in London a few times a year, or other meetups in London. And all of that is just gone. And I know it'll come back, but I kind of miss that, you know?
Yeah.
I miss just meeting people who I've been interacting with on Twitter and Facebook, and then meeting them in real life. I get a real buzz out of that. And, you know, lockdowns has been all right, really. We haven't suffered, really, you know, we haven't suffered financially. We haven't suffered mentally, really, you know, and just because I'm a bit kind of down in the dumps, I don't think that's compared with what a lot of folks have been through, you know.
Well, yeah.
But
you know,
I'm missing it.
At the same time, you can't, you know, sort of minimize comparing like my or your or Simon's, like comparing our individual experiences to others and saying, well, so many people have it worse, and just sort of like tossing your stuff aside or or compartmentalizing it and not acknowledging it isn't really healthy. Like, yeah, okay, sure, it's not as bad as some other people have been, and we're like, I'm sure individually doing okay, but at the same time, like, you can't ignore, nobody can ignore the effects on themselves and just like bottle it up, because that's not particularly healthy. Not that this is like the mental health photography channel, but still, like, it has to be acknowledged that it's been 12 months of this, and it's incredibly difficult for everybody, regardless of whether or not your difficulty is relative to somebody else's. It's still your difficulty.
It is, yeah.
You know?
I'm glad I phoned into this chat line now and had a word with you, Dr.
I'm here for you, my brother. I'm here for you. You know, like, I haven't, you know, I'm supposed to go for a ride this spring or this summer, and it's just not going to happen. And I'm not really feeling it. Right.
Where were you going? What were you? Do we know about
originally, I was going to ride, before COVID, going to ride the first Trail of Tears that were forced on the Choctaw Nation from Mississippi to Oklahoma.
Yep.
And that was an offshoot of meeting some member of the Choctaw Nation and on the story I did in Oklahoma just before lockdown. And I still want to do that ride because I think it's going to be fascinating. And then we dialed it back, and a couple of friends and I were going to ride from our place here in the Bay Area out to Reno, and then back across California, and then back down to San Francisco in a great big, like, 2-week loop. And be fairly social distance, because most of that is unpopulated. You know, going riding across California is just not a lot of anything besides mountains and woods. It's really pretty. And I just haven't gotten the drive to get back on the bike. You know, I feel fat and out of shape, and work is crushing and busy, and new house, and there's always stuff to do. And it's just like finding the time, and there's time to be found. Like, I find time for dry plates and other shit, pardon my language, but I just haven't found the time or drive for the bike.
Yeah, but that's quite a big chunk of time needed. And as you say, you've moved house recently. You've got a house full of rabbits.
Well, yeah, there's that too. They're almost gone.
You'd be leaving Heather for, you know, a selfish joyride in the countryside.
Oh no, she wants me to go. She wants me to get the hell out of here. Like, she is joyous when I leave for a couple of weeks once a year or two. She's like, no, get out. This is good. But it's just, you know, it feels really depressing that the last meaningful thing I did was now going on 3 years ago for that Butterfield trip. Right. And that's,
you're not cheering me up
difficult.
Now.
I know, but I'm just saying that it's like, we all have these things. We all have to figure out ways to get out of them.
Yeah.
You know.
But you just need to get on and do it then, don't you, really? Like, I need to get on and do my dark room and stop feeling sorry for myself, really.
Well, yeah. But also, you know, I guess the point being, like, you have to sort of acknowledge where this stuff comes from, and then find positive ways to get ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
So
good. Well, thank you, Dr. Erik. Simon, you've got a quizzical look on your face.
Yeah, well,
yeah, he always does when I talk. It's safe.
I'm just carrying on that thought, because I've realised that photograph. I mean, I've thrown myself into making and building and all that kind of stuff for the last 12 months now. But I also realised that from a taking photographs point of view, it pretty much stopped. Well, obviously it did stop with lockdown and going out and taking photos and things like that. But I've got film in cameras that I know just needs to be taken out and developed, and I've got we've talked about it before, the wet twig photo that I posted a while back. Well, that's actually one of 5 photographs which are still sitting in my Combiplan tank holder waiting to be digitized, and that goes back from like last year. And so it's a case of, you know, lockdown is easing again for us in the UK tomorrow, and I'm beginning to like get myself into the train of thought about going out and taking photographs again. And it's almost as if I can't really deal with the photographs that I've taken last year until I actually get out and actually start doing photography all over again, and then I can start again. It's like that whole thing has been put to one side completely, instead of making use of the time that I've had to develop things and scan things and organise things. No, it's just been on complete hold. Nothing has happened on that at all.
But you have been doing, you know, lens caps and
exactly.
other things, haven't you?
But yeah, that's right. But for actual photography and the things connected with making photographs and digitizing or print. Well, I mean, I can't print without going to the darkroom anyway. But all of that has just been completely on hold, and it's not. I just know it's not going to start again until I actually go out and take more photographs again, and then I'll be there thinking, oh, I've got all of these things that I still need to develop and digitize and so on, and I couldn't have done them over the last 6 to 12 months while I had the time. So just an odd thing. It seems like I have to go out and take photographs to be able to keep things moving. So odd.
Well, for you and for me, I guess to a certain extent, like there's a certain amount of also joy to be found in tinkering, like a lens build or the 3D printing, and like finding the fun in the finding solutions or building solutions. Like the teaser here, the camera you just picked up that you want to do a conversion on. Like there's a lot of fun to be had in that sort of thing that isn't taking a photograph. And it's sort of interesting comparing, contrasting, how we got to that. Comparing, contrasting the joy of taking images versus the joy of making things to make images. Right?
Yeah. Well, on that subject, although we'll still keep that as a teaser, because I'll quickly talk about something else, which is again connected with making, which is all I seem to be doing. But I think it's about 3 weeks ago since we last did the last episode of the Classic Lenses podcast, and on that show, one of the co-hosts, Perry G, he mentioned he was talking about lenses that are doing well in Hong Kong at the moment, and he just happened to mention a French lens called. We were talking earlier about how to pronounce this, and we didn't really come to a consensus, but it's Bower. And Erik was suggesting it might be Boyer because Boyer. Yeah. So we'll go with that because he sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
Bauer, surely, isn't it just called Bauer?
That would have a W in it, wouldn't it? Yeah.
You said it had a W in it. Bower. You just said.
Did I say that?
I thought it was Boy.
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 Oh, Boyer.
I have two friends with the exact same name. Boucher, and one who live in completely different places. They're not related to each other, at least that I know of. One pronounces it Boucher, 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 and the other one pronounces it Boucher. Tomato, my
bucket
friend.
And bouquet.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. So I've got this Bower lens, Bower. From Paris. It says it's from Paris, and it also says sapphire without the E at the end, so Sophia perhaps, and apparently that's quite a desirable lens. And this particular one is a 150mm 4.8, I think. Yeah, 4.8, and it's an enlarger lens. But more to the point, I've got an MPP micropress, which is British version of the Speed Graphic. So I'm going to make a lens board for this and screw it in, because I'm very close to actually to have truly worked out how to do screw threads by 3D printing. So this is just gagging for a 39mm screw thread to be attached to a lens board and go out and shoot.
Does it have coverage?
Lenses. Yeah. Well, it's a 150mm enlarger lens. So,
okay.
So you would, I'm taking the view. Well, if it will enlarge for a 4x5, then it should be able to take 4x5. Maybe.
There's
we'll see. Maybe.
They must have a series of these things, because there's one on eBay called the Topaz with a Z. So that's a 50. That's a 50 or Z. That's a 50mm. So maybe they change the name based on the focal length
or the quality of the glass. I
think it's a range. But so quite a few of these Sophias.
Oh, there's a Sophia B.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. 135mm lens here. Look, $168.
Yeah. I mean,
interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they're a French optical company founded in 1895 and I'm not going to do it. Antoine, Antoine Boyer, sold, etc. bankruptcy in the beginning of the 70s. Closed in 1982. All of their lenses are named after jewels. Interesting.
So looking forward to
and they're
giving that.
Yeah, and they're completely poorly documented. Like a short history of the company with an incomplete catalog of its lenses. They're completely undocumented, and nobody really knows anything about them. Hilarious.
Well, looking forward to giving that one a go. So that's that little thing, and the main thing that I'm about to be up to, and this is something that I've fancied doing this for a reasonable while. And Erik's, I'm not sure if we've talked about it on the podcast, but certainly in conversations, Erik has spoke about the Polaroid Pathfinder cameras. And there are several models of it. You know, you've got the 110A, and I think there's a B, and there's also the one that I've got in front of me, which is the 120, which is the not the export market, the non-American market version of the camera. So it's from what I can gather, it's absolutely identical. It's built to the same patterns and things like that. But it's made in Japan, and it has a Yashica lens, so it has a Yashinon lens on it. I don't know if that also means it was also made by Yashica as well. I don't know, but that's one of those things that actually makes me quite happy, because I'm thinking, well, they really did know how to make cameras and lenses, and so how it compares optically to the Roden stock or the earlier Wollensack lenses on there, I do not know. And I just so happened to actually have a shutter mechanism and a Wollensack lens as well, which I picked up a previous time.
Those lenses are super common.
Yeah, so I was, it was cheap, and I thought, I'll have that, as you do. But anyway, more to the point, why are we talking about a Polaroid camera on the Large Format Photography podcast? And that is some very clever people, and not necessarily recently. Yeah, people have been doing this for quite some time. Have been converting these cameras, because these used to use not the pack film, but a Polaroid roll film, which is quite a lot, a relatively tall film, and the actual aperture at the back is pretty much like 3 by 2 inches. They're maybe a little bit bigger, actually.
Much bigger.
Okay, well, it's not much bigger. Maybe, what is it, about 3.25 by 2.25, something like that?
I have to measure. I've shot a bunch of these. I have a Polaroid 800. This is another model that I've converted, and it's not that much smaller than a 4x5.
Yeah,
I think it's much bigger than a 2-inch by 3-inch for sure.
Okay,
it's way the frame size is much bigger than that.
Okay, well that's good. Well, and I think I can understand why, because I mean, if you actually,
I think it's more like it's closer to 3.25 by 4.25.
Yeah, that's it. So, but actually, well, anyway, I'm sort of jumping ahead and backwards and forwards here. So, what some clever people have done is actually managed to convert these things to 4x5, or at least to take a 4x5 film holder is perhaps a better way of putting it. And I thought to myself, I fancy doing this, and I've seen on sites such as Thingiverse, which is a 3D printing repository of freely downloadable files, and a chap called Morten Colve, something like that. He's from Norway. He came up with this a way of doing it, and you can download his files. You can buy these kits from him if you don't have a 3D printer, but he also gives you complete access. If you have your own 3D printer, you can just download them, and I have a 3D printer or 9.
A couple.
Yeah, and so I thought, that sounds a good idea. So I downloaded them, and then I also looked at how it all goes together, and there are other ways. Other people have done them in different ways, because, like I say, it's not a new thing. And I was gonna do it the way this prescribed way, and then I decided I'm not so sure about that now, because I'm thinking, is there a way of doing this without actually getting a Dremel to it and a drill and pliers and all sorts of things? Because that is something I just don't like. Converting cameras from one thing to another when you actually effectively destroy its original use is something that I'm not entirely happy with. And I've got a cup of tea coming to me now, so just bear with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a.
She can't hear me.
Yeah, I have a cup of Red Bush here, so that's.
Well, the only way to do that, honestly, is to just like take it into the dark room and directly load a piece of film into the back and close the door. Because otherwise, sorry, man.
I am determined at the moment. I'm determined at the moment to try and find a non-destructive, non-invasive, as in not drilling any holes into it, so that the whole thing can come apart and turn it into a 4x5 camera, and if I so wish, go back to being its original state. And that is what I'm going to attempt to do, because looking at it, I think I've got a way of doing it. I don't know if it works in my head as well.
See, the challenge, and sorry for the folks who don't have one of these cameras in their hot hands, is the bottom rail, for all intents and purposes, the bottom lip.
Actually, Erik, this would be a good time to actually just explain what one of these Pathfinder cameras is. I've not really explained it. Do you want to explain and then carry into where you were going?
Yeah. So back in the day, I wish this film was still available. I think this film was brilliant. Edward Land Polaroid designed and made a series of rangefinder cameras that shot a type of Polaroid roll film that produced a positive image print, like Polaroids do, but also kept the negative in a roll, which is just like the holy grail for instant shooters who also like to keep negatives around. And the largest and best ones essentially produced an image that was just smaller than a 4x5. It's like a 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, if I'm not mistaken, the same size as the Graflex I do all my trips with. And the top premier ones had really nice lenses, the 127 4.7 manual exposure, essentially large format lens. And the less expensive ones used a 2 or 3 element smaller one with sort of an automatic shutter aperture combination. And you see those in like the Polaroid 800s, 900s is that series, which is what I have. I have one of those that I've covered 4x5. And just on a side note, those lenses are razor sharp. Like they'll take an image where the sharpness, it feels sharp enough to cut your finger with. Like don't underestimate the cheaper Polaroid lenses because they're bloody brilliant. They're so good. And I can't remember when that film stopped being produced, but that film isn't in existence anymore. But I think over the last 2 decades, a few enterprising individuals pre-3D printing discovered ways to take these and turn them into, with either Graflex backs or spring-loaded backs, 4x5 cameras. I think probably one of the most famous ones, there was a gentleman, I'm spacing on his name, but he was in Australia, and he was the path setter for all of this. David Burnett got one of his cameras, and it's essentially you have a giant rangefinder 4x5, and they're awesome. Like you burn through 4x5. I've shot them street photography. You burn through 4x5 film with them so fast. You take like 14 film holders, and in 2 hours you burn through 28 sheets of 4x5 film, and you've gone, what did I just do? This is amazing. I want to keep doing it. So they're great. But with the advent of 3D printers and folks like Simon and Martin Kolb and whatnot, there's just these kits now that if you're willing to do some, or not, in Simon's case, some destructive surgery, you can convert these over to shoot 6x9 film backs, 120 film backs, essentially have them be a Graflex backed rangefinder. They're brilliant. I love them. Andrew.
So I used to meet up when I used to go down to Cornwall with Matt Smith. Matt's a Polaroid shooter, and he had a converted 110A or B, which he shot Polaroid pack film on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think he might have done the conversion himself, but he still uses it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the original conversion. People would convert to pack film and shoot the Fuji stuff. And then when the Fuji stuff sort of went away and dried up, there was a collective panic. And then people started like, oh, 4x5, you know.
I've got a couple of Polaroid 103s, which are kind of, they're glass lens but plastic bodied Polaroid pack film cameras. I've got two because and they're great. Not as good as the 250s, which had the decent rangefinder, and I had one of those but flogged it.
But so those are different.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I would say those are different than these because those are built around the pack film stuff. Yeah. But if you were just about to say you were curious on how to convert those, there have been more people working on converting those specific pack film cameras to either Instax backs or 4x5 or roll film. So there's more and more stuff out there.
I think I'd be more interested in converting it to an Instax.
Yep.
Because whilst I see the sexual attraction of a handheld 4x5, I can lug my RB67 around or some other or my GW690, and it's horses for courses, and for me, large format generally is something that requires a bit more consideration rather. And I'm not doing down, any handheld 4.5 user, of course not. But and I can, and those cameras are beautiful, and I can absolutely see the attraction. But it's but I would love to do something with my one of my 103s, because one of them I'll keep anyway, because I do occasionally put a pack of that Super Sense one shot expensive selling your kidney films in it,
Right. Yeah. So
I'd keep one still for pack film just in case another miracle occurs and we get pack film in some cheap state. But I would like it. There's a guy actually on Facebook who is very reasonably doing a Frankenstacks back for RB67s, and because I've got an RB67s, and he will for €200 go out and get or source an Instax square, so that's the square format. So, but they're like Polaroid squares, but of course smaller. And he will make you the Frankenstacks back for your RB. And I've been chatting with him, and he said if you've actually got one of these SQ cameras, then you can send it to him, and he charges like €100 to do the work or something. Okay. But and I didn't think that was too bad, and I nearly went for it. And I nearly went for that Lomography 4x5 Instax wide. But do you know what's holding me back on that? I just don't. Once the teenage Japanese girls fall out of love with it, I'm not convinced that Instax will just stay the course. Because, Fuji, I don't think Fuji have got their heart in it. All the while it's making Spondulics.
Fuji is a little fickle. Although, here's the thing about that. The counter to that, though, is Instax has been around for 6-7 years now, maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And Fuji, being a giant corporation, has spent a lot of money putting together the factories and the tooling around this.
Yeah.
And that's the reason they phased out pack film. Or their film is that even though they were selling out, they weren't selling out in the volume that was required to keep the machines running properly. No. And there was too much money to retool and do a smaller setup. And so it made no financial sense. But I think the Instax stuff, like I can't go anywhere with an Instax camera without people losing their minds over it. Not just teenagers, but like adults who remember Polaroids with their families and asking if you'll take a photo with that and hand it to them. So I don't know. I think Instax might be around for,
well, that's good. Maybe I will
at least another 10-ish, 15-ish years, because Fuji's in it for the long run to make their money back. And the cost on that Insta and the on that 4x5 back is actually pretty affordable.
It is.
It's less than $200. It's like $150 or something like that. It's not bad price.
I think at the moment you can the ones at the moment there's been a delay. I don't know what maybe it's to do with Brexit, but there's been a delay on production.
Yeah.
And if you place an order now, they're still taking pre-orders for the second series of them, and you get 10% off. I think it's about £116 with the 10% off, and then they charge you another £10 for shipping or something.
Yeah. I'm really tempted just because if it's a graph lock back. So if any camera from my Intrepid if I do another Polaroid 110 conversion to a Graph-Lock back, like Simon may or may not be doing. We'll get back to that, with or without the destruction. You can't do it with a Graph-Lock back and not be destructive. Sorry.
I think I'd get more use out of the guy who's doing the Frankenstacks backs for my RB, because I can imagine photo meetups in Cambridge with that camera and the Instax square back, and doing portraits of people either in the group or strangers in the streets, which I used to do with SX70.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a buddy who's got one of the 4x5s converted to the pack film, which he got for a song, the jerk. It was just in a bag at a White Elephant sale, and he got it for like $25. It's a professional, beautiful conversion. Vince, curse you. But he loves shooting that thing, like the pack film, as portraits and whatnot. You can shoot it really fast. So I'm sure an Instax backed setup like that, like when Simon does his conversion to an Instax back, and uses that he'll be able to like whip those things out and hand them out to Bob and his uncle.
Well, just a thought about this, the on the RB or the RZ, whichever one it was you mentioned. RB. So the idea is that you would actually modify the camera. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, not your RB, but he goes for your €200. He sources your Instax SQ6. I don't know what they are, and he's on. I forget the guy's name on Instagram, but he's all over it, and it's a nice looking thing, and it attaches to you. It attaches to your back, and the results look great. And
so the issue that I've got here, and it's not explained, and we haven't touched upon it, and that's just the way that Instax, how that would you can't just stick an Instax back on. Let's forget about how it fastens and all this kind of stuff. Getting the film plane in the correct position.
He does it.
Well, that's the thing. I can't see how he can do that without actually modifying the camera, because the film plane is too far back. So you'd end up turning your lenses into macro lenses.
Well, let's just park that, because I haven't got the details with me, but I will put some links to the show note and also share it into the group as well. I think maybe it's in, I know where it is. It's because I'm a member of the RB67 Facebook group. He's in there. And he's showing examples, pictures of the work, and
they'll be able to. I can see how we can do portraiture with it. Yeah, which you can. Yeah, but I'm saying I just struggle to see how you get to infinity. Now you could argue who cares about infinity with Instax. It's always going to be taking pictures of people, generally speaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's just like, how far away is the furthest? Can they be and still be in focus?
I don't know, Simon. Really, it's a good question.
Well, which brings me to your non-destructive conversion. I mean, I'm trying to think of how you would do that if you don't want to be destructive and you don't want to, because when I did my Polaroid 800 conversion, every other conversion that I've seen, you have to cut part of the bottom lip in order to get the 4x5 holder to get in there, to be on anywhere close to the same film plane.
Well, that's
right. And so if you're willing to offset the film plane by like 10 millimeters and ram the lens back by 10 millimeters, but they're...
And that's it. That's exactly what I'll be doing. But then that's how they are.
But you still might need to cut. Sorry, folks, if you haven't seen one of these cameras, I'm so sorry. But there's the housing for the rangefinder, the plastic rangefinder housing up top is also kind of chunkily back. I don't think I had to cut into any of that for my conversion, but there was some material at the top I still had to cut.
Yeah.
So it's really just a question of whether or not you can offset that to the degree you can offset the lens, push the lens back to the degree that you need to offset that film plane.
Yeah. Like I say, in my head,
might be able to.
In my head, it works perfectly.
Yeah. Okay. And then also keep it light proof.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. The light proof
that will be tricky with what I'm trying to do. But right. I'm not looking at doing Instax with it. That's a step too far at this moment. Yeah. Who knows?
I mean, if you converted it to shoot not 4x5 but 2x3, then totally. Right, because the 2x3 holder is so much smaller, you could easily fit that inside there and just mask it off, and just take the door off. If you want to keep 4x5,
it defeats the object of it. Then if they're shooting 2x3, because there are other ways of shooting effectively medium format film, isn't there? So they're more convenient and easier. And there are also other ways of doing 4x5, true 4x5 in a handheld way. And I can think of two cameras that do that. There's the Chroma Snapshot, and there's the Cameradactyl OG as well. So
if you can find them, the Travel Wide, which apparently, according to Nico, we should be expecting some level of news from Travel Wide. I don't know what. And then there's the gentleman, what is his name, in Tehran, who makes a handheld 4x5, I believe.
Yeah. But I think what appeals to me on this one is the fact that it can be rangefinder coupled, and anybody that's listened to me on the Classic Lenses podcast knows that I hate rangefinders, so I am being completely hypocritical. But this is a different podcast, so I can say that I like rangefinders on here, and nobody will notice.
Dude, rangefinder 4x5s are brilliant.
Exactly, it just sounds great, and the thing folds up, and if you've got huge pockets, it will actually go in one as well. So it's all good, and I'll get a Graflock back on there as well. We haven't mentioned Graflock.
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to.
Not Graflock. Graphmatic. Graphmatic is what we want on there, which is for anybody who's not uncertain what that is. That's a method of fitting 5 4x5 sheets of film into a back that's not that much thicker than a conventional film holder, and it uses magic to put the film in there and swap them around.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, having shot a bunch of rangefinder 4x5, it is an indescribably fun experience. If you ever, in the audience, if you ever have the chance to just shoot street photography or reportage or documentary work, or just like go out with a camera like this and just shoot, because the thing with the cone 4x5 cameras is you're zone focusing, or you're using the ground glass and you're guessing, or it's still sort of the same process, like Andrew said, where it's very measured and but the ability to like look through a rangefinder, focus and frame and just shoot with negative that size is absolutely exhilarating. It's a ton of fun.
I just remember there's another advantage as well for offsetting the film plane. At least I think so. Because I think that will actually enable the projected image to grow, to be larger, because it's set a little at the back.
That's true.
So I'll set it back around about, I don't know, 40.
It might actually cover the full 4x5 film plane instead of 3¼ by 4¼
So
that's true.
So there you go. So that's what I've been up to, and now let's find out what Eric's been up to, because you've been making lenses.
I don't know what I've been up to. Well, shooting dry plate, specifically. So we moved in December, and the thing about this neighborhood, which I may or may not have mentioned on previous podcasts, is there's just a ton of cars, not just like people-driven cars, like cars that are used on a daily basis, but like cars in yards, cars on streets, cars where either they used to run and then they don't run anymore and they're too expensive to repair or too beloved to throw away, or somebody purchased it as a project car and just never got around to working on it, or are working on it at a very slow pace, or all of the above, right? But there's just a ton of what I'm just going to call yard cars in this neighborhood. They're just everywhere. And I find them fascinating. There's everything from like cars from the 20s and 30s all the way up to like cars from the 2000s that fall into this like broad category. And it's just such an American thing, like the American car culture combined with American consumerism and like obsessive of collecting of things that you think you can use or do something with, but lack the skill or money or drive or time to do. Like in order to fix an old car, you need to have the money to fix the old car and the time to fix the old car.
I was just going to say, we don't do that with cameras, do we?
Yeah, totally. 100%. Yeah, exactly. Replace car with camera. And then, hey, look at us. Woo. Look at this Rolleiflex 3A that's sitting on the table next to me with a dodgy shutter system, which will take 5 million hours and countless amount of skill that I don't have to deal with. So yeah, there's that. And so I find it fascinating, and I've been wandering around the neighborhood, taking images with the glass plates and an old Voigtlander camera that with a dead lens that I just brought back from life. Sorry about background. There's a coffee maker right next to me, which sadly just turned off I should turn it back on again. Anyways, so I've been shooting that just to get out in my neighborhood and just to sort of feel like I'm doing something in COVID land, because otherwise I've just been sitting around working too much and doing too much housework. So yeah, that's been fun. And hopefully today I will finish buttoning up Alana Airtrim's lens. We tested it 2 weeks ago. My buddy Vince, the aforementioned Vince, who got the great 4x5 rangefinder for $50 American, went over 2 weekends ago and tested the lens on his 8x10. So it's the first time I've ever actually put that lens on a camera. So until this, it's been complete theory. And it worked. I mean, I should caveat that. First it worked and then it didn't. It worked wide open, and then when I stopped it down to like f32 or f64, it didn't cover. Like the vignetting was massive because the barrel on the French landscape configuration. So for those of you in the audience who are listening who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, I'm hand making a lens for a photographer, Alana Airtrim, whom we should eventually have on the show once she's done the work. And it's convertible from a single element French landscape, which is the classic 1800s design, to a 2-element Petzl type. It just converts between the two by bolting the front to the back. And the French landscape puts the aperture in front of the lens at the end of a barrel. And that's just the way the design was. So when I did that, it didn't get 8x10 coverage, and I was very sad and slightly panicked. So
if it was a single lens with the aperture in front of the lens, which is the same as these old meniscus lenses,
exactly,
it works properly. But because there's a second lens,
nope.
Is it the second?
The issue was it was a single meniscus design, and the barrel was too long.
Oh, right.
Even though I did the right math, it's usually 1/6 or 1/7. The barrel distance for the aperture is usually 1/6 to 1/7 the distance of the focal length. So if you have a 100 millimeter lens, pulling numbers out of thin air, you usually place the aperture 1/6 to 1/7 that in front of it. And it apparently either that math is wrong or with this particular setup it was wrong, but at like f32, which isn't that small of an aperture, like it didn't cover anywhere close to the full.
Yeah, but that had nothing to do with the fact that you just stuck another lens at the back.
No, this is a single element. No, when it had the two, everything's Bob's your uncle. This is a single element aperture. This is shooting it with just a single lens. And that was the first thing we tested, and I completely panicked because like, oh shit, I need 8x10 coverage. I can't have this crazy vignette thing. And she's going to need decent aperture to get sharpness from this thing, because this is not a scientifically created lens. This is not a Jason Lane, on the space station lens. This is an Erik Mathy, whatever lens. But we tested it again with a shorter lens barrel, and lo and behold, we got full frame coverage, and I was very excited. It actually has enough coverage to cover 16x20. Like we took Vince's, he's got the full coverage, and we threw it maximum left and maximum up and maximum everything, and it has full coverage no matter how far you throw that move the front element. Like it's kind of awesome. And then it also works just as well with the 2-element configuration, the Petzl configuration. So it looks good. It looks great.
So Erik, did you not need that lens length to accommodate both lenses, or was the actual length superfluous that you could just circumcise it in effect?
The length in question was the barrel length for the aperture size. We just made this entire thing. Simon's losing it. And that's only, you only use that when it's in the single element meniscus design. When it has the 2 elements together, then the aperture gets moved to between them, and you don't need that big front barrel anymore.
So the big front bit that was that detachable?
Yes, it's 100% detachable. Right. So that's part of it. Like I built a barrel so that when it's in its single element configuration, the barrel slides onto the front of the wood, and then you've got a French landscape. And for the folks listening, we will post in the podcast notes links to illustrations of what a French landscape lens looks like and what a 2-element Petzval looks like, so you can sort of understand the difference and why they have. I'm talking about this.
So you don't need that extra bit on the front anymore. Then
I shortened the hell out of it, and it still worked. So you still need it. You still need to put the aperture in the front,
but
and you still have to be some distance in the front, but it didn't have to be nearly as long.
I need to see photos, really.
Yeah, totally. Simon.
2-element Petzval lens. You just, as you just said something there, you just muted yourself.
You muted yourself to answer the question.
I'm muting it, Andrew, to be like, circumcised, really? Yes.
My life already.
Yes, 2-element Petzval. Continue.
I didn't think a Petzval was 2-element. Isn't that? I thought that was an achromat.
No.
Oh.
It has 2 achromats. So a Petzval was the first lens to have 2 achromats. But the interesting thing about the Petzval is it's got a front sort of cemented non-airspace achromat, and the rear achromat is an airspace achromat.
So that's 4 lenses now.
It is. Well, essentially,
that's 4 elements.
Yes, technically, yes.
So not 2.
Technically, it's 2. Technically, it's 2 achromats, but an achromat is built up of a crown and a flint.
Yeah,
but it's still when you pair them together, my friend, they become a single element achromat. Oh, that's the way it works. Sorry, bro.
It might work that way, but you can't call it a 2-element lens. No, you can't.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Talk to Jason. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. 3. Surely.
Yes.
Surely it's at least 3 if you've got 2 things glued together and then 2 with an airspace.
No,
it's 3,
isn't it? Technically it's an airspace achromat. We're gonna get drunk with Jason and hash this out.
Okay. Well, I don't really care.
On the Classic Lenses podcast, apparently.
Yeah, well, so that's like saying, so if you ever have cemented lenses, then you don't count them as 2. That's just one.
They're single. Yep. Yeah.
And also all those cemented lenses, these relatively modern lenses, planars and things like that, with cemented elements or sonars and things like that.
They're cemented achromat.
We're counting too many elements. So when we read them as saying like it's an 8-element Super Takuma or something like that, it's probably about, I don't know, 2.5 or something like that.
No. Because those, when you look at them and you look at the diagrams, they're all airspaced out and they're used different elements. So the achromat is very specific, and then they'll have like a convex, whatever. And they'll have like 6 distinct elements.
Looking forward to the Classic Lenses podcast when you get you on. Okay.
Whiskey time with Erik, Jason, and Simon and Andrew. This should be good. But nonetheless, and even I won't nerd out too much, but even this 2-element Petzval clone isn't, because I didn't end up having the space to airspace the back. So it's actually something different, but it works really well. And hopefully today I should be able to button it up. And then that just leaves me, I just have to finish producing the apertures for her, and then build a box for it to protect it while she's in the field, and it's done. I'm excited. It produces really nice, really nice images. We still have to test it with some portraits just to see what it does for portraits, but like the shots in Vince's backyard came out really well. So I'm pleasantly shocked. Actually, no, I'm just shocked. I'm pleased and I'm shocked that it came out as well as it did. So there's that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
and then I hope to make a couple more wooden single element lenses with wooden barrels for some friends of mine who have medium formats. So that should be fun.
I'm still slightly speechless over how we count elements, but we
shall debate.
Yeah, that's going to have to be for another time.
Before you move on to other things, we were chatting about the Instax back a moment ago, and at some point when I was bored, I messaged David Lago de Montana. Anyway, David, who I'm friends with on Facebook, is the guy behind making these Instax backs for the RB67. So I sent him a message while you were wittering on about something to say we were chatting about your back, and basically, can you focus at infinity? Because someone said you can't. Or you may not be able to. Questioned it maybe. without modifying the.
Simon openly questioned it.
I didn't name Simon. I might do in a minute though. So he says, "Wow, I'm deeply flattered that we were talking about him." There we go. Driving at the moment. Well, I hope he stopped. The short answer is...
Wait, what?
The short answer is yes, can focus at infinity, but I think he said he's going to come back to me with more details. So there we go. Watch this space.
Yes.
David, so if anyone's interested on Facebook, his name is David Lago, Lago D Montana, with a squiggly bit above the N, however you pronounce that.
I used to know to do that. Erik, you know, don't you?
So, and if you look at his work, it's good. You know, the back looks the job. It looks the dog's bollocks, to be honest.
Bollocks. Why would a dog have a bull's? Anyways, okay,
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Or we just say it looks the dogs, and then you know what it means.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Now then, I think it is time that we catch up on our emails, and that sort of makes it sound like we got a lot of emails. We actually haven't got that many emails, but we do have a few, and we do need to read them out. So we don't have any music for the Ask Erik section, which is now coming up, but
we should do.
Yeah, but if you have some music and suggestions for what we can use, it's royalty free,
please.
Then we might give this section a bit of music. So over to Erik.
Like a game show theme, something. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, I get a theme song. That's probably a terrible idea. Right. So we have three emails, and one of them is actually slightly from the Wayback Machine of about a month ago, from Jess Lance. Sorry, Jess.
No,
it took a while.
No, Jess was on the 23rd of March.
Yes, but it's the 11th of April. It's almost a month ago. It's like 3 weeks ago. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Time works that way, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes. It passes. Yeah. Especially while you're doing other things, which apparently we found that we never necessarily have been doing other things. But nonetheless, time has passed. And Jess wrote in and said, "Gentlemen," he's obviously talking to somebody other than us, and then comes back to talk to us to say, "Yesterday, as I was working in my garage, figure out how I planned on building some pinhole cameras in my retirement. Good for you. I listened off and on throughout the day to your podcast, trying to get current. Then, before I crashed for the night, I listened to the Balkowicz podcast. I was moved, stunned, blown away by the passion and intensity of Shane Balkowicz. You went to a higher place in this interview. Today, I just finished watching his documentary. Beautifully done. Thanks for bringing his story to my attention, one that I might have otherwise passed by. Thanks, Jess Lance." So you're welcome. I mean, I had nothing to do with that podcast. So Simon and Andrew,
We've come crashing down since that high point, clearly.
So down.
Yeah, you joined us not long after that.
Bounce the plane hard on the runway now, kids.
Yeah. Thank you, Jess. We enjoyed it. We've enjoyed all, I guess, haven't we? I don't think I couldn't point at one. even if you asked me to point at one, I wouldn't.
Yeah, no. I think everyone's been great. And also congratulations, Jess, for pinhole camera building in your retirement. Nice. I mean, both pinhole camera building and retirement. Like, I can't even imagine. Yeah. Only one of us here is retired, right?
Semi-retired. It's to be recommended.
The retired part or the pinhole part?
Both.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So, Jess, thanks. Write in again. Enjoy the podcast. And then we have another one, and this is also from the Wayback Machine of January 23rd. We have no defense on this one.
This is way backer.
Way back. It's still 2021 at least, so we have that going for us. Ian Wallace. Hi, LFPP team. I was just listening to you talk about what you'd like to include in the show in the future, LFPP number 43. And I thought I'd let you know what I particularly enjoyed from last year's shows. I especially enjoyed and found inspiring the episodes with the in-depth interviews with some amazing working LF photographers. Immediately distinct and memorable guests were Shane Balkowicz, again, Shane, yo, Dave Shrimpton, Jack Lowe, and Clyde Butcher. More of these if you can find the right guests, please. And also, just as a side note from Erik, that's 4 great names. Like Shane Balkowitz, David Shrimpton, Jack Lowe, and Clyde Butcher. Like, it sounds like they should be in like a holdup gang from the Wild West, doesn't it? Like, that's a great bunch of names who are also highly talented large format photographers. But anyways, when discussing gear and techniques, I'm personally not worried I can't see what you're looking at. I love the radio format of podcasts, and I don't want to have to go and watch things. I can dip into YouTube if I must, but I love listening to things being explained. So having a variety of material, including some techniques and technology, is a great show format. Enjoying the show and looking forward to the new episodes. Best regards, Ian Wallace. Instagram and Twitter at Ian on a Hill Road.
Well, thank you very much, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Ian.
Yeah, they were, they were definitely standout shows amongst many standout shows. And
all pre-Erik.
Yes, all
pre me. Yeah. I sense a trend.
Yeah, when we were good. They were the ones, and no, we have quite a few guests lined up, which I think will give those people a good run for their money in terms of
and I think guests honestly who have, like, Nicole's show was fantastic.
Exactly.
Her follow-up show with the crew over at Handmade Camera Podcast was phenomenal. Nico is Nico. Like, what can you say about Nico besides he's Nico, and he's got the best tie and mustache in the business, and he's awesome. Like, I think we've had great guests. Although that bunch of names is pretty great. Clyde Butcher. I mean, come on. How do you beat that name? I don't think you can. I mean,
we're now looking forward to when you bring on, and I'm talking specifically to Erik here, who's still in this probation period until he brings us, David Burnett and Sally Mann, who I'm sure he's got lined up, but he's just not telling us about it at the moment.
Yeah. Actually, I did ping or email our friend and watcher. Who's associates with David, to see whether or not David replied to his email entreaty to come on the show, or whether he just scoffed at it. So we'll see. We'll see. We shall see what happens with that. And then last but certainly not least, also from the Wayback Machine of no, this one we already read. Sorry. No, I think that's it. This other one that you sent me was from January 17th from Billy Sanford, and we already discussed this one.
Yeah, and there's one more which I copied and pasted and sent across to you because it's from Instagram from our Instagram feed.
Oh, right. I don't have that one pulled up. Give me 1 second. My bad. My apologies, good sir. There it is. I was just looking for the large format email address. All right. Hello, Simon. Just heard the Nicole Small episode. Excellent. You guys are making the joyless photoshopping I have been doing recently less painful. Glad to hear it. So, just to say, you mentioned on the show that this LFPP Instagram is not interesting. Well, you are mistaken. I have been checking out your followers' work on my commute. I hope your commute doesn't include driving. And a lot of it is brilliant. My Instagram viewing has become much more entertaining as a result of following some of your followers. Just an extra plus, so thank you for the LFPP Insta follower filter. That's from William Furness, whose Insta, by the way, is William Furness. FWILLIAMFURNISS. So all of you LFPP listeners who are on Instagram who've been caught up in the LFPP Instagram hashtag, that's a mouthful, should follow William because he is following you. And I've looked at his work. It's very good. I was curious. So sorry about the joyless photoshopping. And I really hope, William, that your commute where you're watching and looking at people's Instagram feeds does not include you driving, because that's a bad idea. Don't do that. Okay? So, and that's all the emails. There weren't any questions.
No, they're very nice emails, but they weren't.
Very nice
we didn't
emails.
Stretch you very far, did we?
No, not at all.
Which was a bit of a shame, really.
Yeah, but
it is a shame.
But just on the subject there of our Instagram feed, yes, I've been doing it down because it's quite half-arsed, and it's going to stay that way. From my side of things anyway, unless Erik or Andrew wants to do a better job, and the offer is always there and always open. But the point there, William's point there, we now have 1,100 followers on that account, which is not bad going, actually, considering we've only got 54 posts, which is basically just covers of each show that we put out. But it's absolutely right. You look at the actual people that follow us, and then just pick them out at random and just check those people out. And there are some absolutely stunning photographers on there. So, it's well worth just, if you've got that 5 minutes and you're wondering what to do, just check out some of our followers on the Large Format Photography Podcast on Instagram, because there are some brilliant people out there.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, and even like the Facebook group too, I've expanded my repertoire of photographers that I find inspiring and interesting, and also interesting to talk to through the podcast group by like quite a bit, and which is fantastic. I'm very excited to be part of the community and to actually know and interact and and admire from afar the work of a lot of the folks in our little crew, and the Lenses podcast and the Build Your Own Camera. The whole, the Graham hates it when I say this, the whole incestuous community that we have around these like 4 or 5 podcasts. I just trigger Graham. I love triggering Graham. It's so good.
I think I came up with that term originally as well, so I'm quite proud of that. I did hear him on the Homemade Camera podcast when he mentioned that through gritted teeth, which I thought was quite cool. Hi Graham.
Hi Graham.
Our incestuous friend.
Now we're just being jerks. We're just poking the bear.
But I think that's just on a wider note. I mean, that's been just like one of the privileges of being involved in this podcast, and also in the Classic Lenses podcast as well. And just to echo Erik, the people that I've been able to speak to and learn from and meet through other people and so on, and all those connections, and the things that I've learned and picked things up so much more quickly because of involvement in this and involvement in the groups where people talk. And then there's also on Twitter, there's great conversations that can happen on there, and Instagram and so on. And I think it's just, it's a brilliant wider community, and it's just been a privilege to be part of it.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Right. So let's start to bring things to a close, unless there's anything else we need to desperately get off our chest before we do shout outs and things like that. No, I don't think so. I think Andrew's falling asleep actually, so let's wake him up in a moment. But before we ask him what the email address is and scare him, I just want to thank some people that have donated to us, because I didn't have the opportunity last time because I got cut off. But I haven't actually missed that many people, I don't think, anyway. So we have on the 19th of March, Jess Lance, who we've just heard from. He donated to us, and he said, this is his message: blown away by episode, and then 10th of September, or September. Actually, that's the thing, you Americans, you do the dates the wrong way around, so we don't understand which one this is. So we're not sure if it's the 10th of September or the 9th of October, but one of those two dates.
They are suspiciously close to each other. They're easily mixed up, those two.
Exactly, yeah. I prefer like when there's a 12 or a 13.
What are you going to do when there's a 10-9? 10-10? No, 10-10 will be 10-10. Forget it.
Yeah, we'll work it out one way or the other.
Yeah.
But he says, and I really should have sent this over to Erik, but being English and saying dang doesn't really work, does it? But here we go. Dang! What a splendid!
Say it again, Simon. Say it again.
Dang! What a spellbinding storyteller Erik is. Yeah. So this is just like Jess would say it. Been skipping through and trying to get caught up, and bam, there he is as a co-host. You guys are great, but dang. So thank you, Jess. And then who's the next one? Where's my back button? Here we go. Come on. Christopher J. Mate, thank you very, very much, Christopher. And then Tim Holmes. Cheers, guys. Keep up the good work. Now, Tim wrote into us a rather long email, and so I'll just finish off this sentence now. Cheers, guys. Keep up the good work, and don't read the whole bloody email next time. So thank you, Tim.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, we like filling time on this show. So
thanks, man.
So if you write a long email, we will read everything. It's as simple as that. So that's pretty much it for those. So, Andrew, have you got any shout outs?
I have, yeah. One to Facebook group member and former guest on the Lensless podcast. So he does large format work with dry plates and using old quarter plate cameras. Maybe he does wet plate as well. He does some stunning panoramic pinhole pictures. John Farnan, who's a regular contributor into our group, so he's been using the J Lane plates, and I chat with him regularly anyway with John about this and that, and he's shooting some old sort of buildings in Scotland somewhere, industrial scenes, and he's getting those plates to work really well. So check out John's work, John Farnan.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with that. Erik, any shout outs?
Well, I'll say it every time, my long-suffering fiance, Heather, for putting up with, me in particular. Like, literally, as we were talking and wrapping the show up, her friend sent she and I photos of like 3 or 4 different cameras, including a lovely-looking little plate camera from a flea market that's open until 3 o'clock, saying, "Does Erik want any of these?" And I'm like, "Well, yes." And Heather's like, "No." I'm like, "Yes, don't tase me." So thank you, as always, Heather, for putting up with me and my shenanigans. Free. And then our entire community, and then you two fine gentlemen for being you, including our wonderful grump, Andrew. You may be a wonderful grump, but you are a wonderful grump.
Exactly.
Wouldn't have you any other way.
And I'll just say the same as Erik there, but I can't think of anybody else. So ditto. And
your wife who brings you tea.
Yes.
God, man.
Red Bush as well, because it's too late for normal tea.
I've moved away from Red Bush now and gone on to decaffeinated Earl Grey. I have,
I can't be doing with decaf stuff. It's just
Red Bush is. Well, I don't know. Now, did Red Bush? Is it naturally decaffeinated? I think it is, isn't it? It's naturally.
Nothing is naturally decaffeinated. It just does not have caffeine in it.
Well, that's what I meant.
Fair. That's a small but important distinction.
Yeah, but you know what I meant. So it naturally doesn't have caffeine. But actually, the caffeine-free Earl Grey is lovely. I was getting a bit fed up with Red Bush, to be honest. I know what you mean. It's our nighttime drink as well. We like us old folks, Erik. We like to have these little rituals, Nice. It used to be Horlicks, and now it's Red Bush because modern old people have Red Bush.
Ovaltine.
Yeah.
You know the song for the Ovaltinis song? Did you used to be a member of the Ovaltinis, Erik? I didn't see them before my time.
No.
I want to say it's something like we are the Ovaltinis. I want to say we're happy boys and girls, but it might be another song I'm thinking of.
Honestly, as an American, when you said Red Bush, I thought you were talking about whiskey.
No,
and then you're like, it's decaf. I'm like, yes, whiskey is decaf, naturally.
It's South Africa. In South African, don't they call it roo booze or something?
I think we've had this conversation on here before, haven't we? Yeah,
probably.
Not with me, you haven't.
But we've all got.
Yeah.
Rooibos. Yeah.
Okay. This is probably the most British ending to a podcast ever. We're talking about Earl Grey.
I have it with milk in. I can't abide it because it's a bit floral, really, and I like it. But with milk in, it's good.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I might have actually started talking about the fact we just moved over to having loose leaf tea when we drink our tea in the daytime. But,
fancy.
But that can wait for another podcast, I guess.
All right.
We're grinding beans now, so that's a new.
Oh yeah, well that's the way you should. That's the way.
Yeah, no, that's. That's the minimum accepted standard for civilized folk. Come on now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, we never did. Well, we did years ago. We haven't done so in a while, but we've got a decent grinder now.
Good.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen,
I went onto this website looking for one. You never guess what I found.
Oh man!
So
Lord
then,
love a duck.
if our conversation, including the last part of it, inspires you or infuriates you enough that you wish to contact us,
Does something.
what would be the best email address to get to us, Andrew?
Large format photography podcast @gmail.com.
That's absolutely correct.
Bing.
Yeah. Okay, so Andrew again. How can people follow you and look at all the things that you do outside of this podcast?
Most social media @WarboysSnapper on Instagram and Twitter, and then hanging around the Lensless Podcast Facebook group and the Large Format Photography Facebook group as well.
And Erik?
Just ErikHmathy is my Instagram account. At the moment, it's flooded with photos of baby bunnies. You'll understand why when you go there. But it will slowly start transitioning back to scans of the dry plate images, which I plan on doing this week, and the this old place lens build, which I should be finishing this week. It'll go back to photography content, and then probably back to bunnies.
You could always take large format photographs of your bunnies.
You know how hard it is to keep baby bunnies in one place? The amount of time it's required to shoot large format. Maybe with the rangefinder where you can focus and shoot relatively quickly, but no, those little suckers do not sit still for very long.
Tie them down or something,
No.
Or
But just
pin them to the floor somehow.
They're adorable, but they are on the move.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, from me, I'm on Twitter. Why aren't you on Twitter, Erik, by the way? Anyway,
Twitter is like a cesspool, like the cesspool of internet social media.
No, it's not. If you're selective about who you follow and you just hone into the community, if ticks pop up, you just cut them off.
I think that's a different site.
On that theme.
So, Twitter. I'm on Twitter as Simon4. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic, which is also the name if you stick .uk on the end of it as my website, where there are lots of lens caps and lots of lens caps and more lens caps to come. And I also do another podcast whenever we get the chance to actually get it out there. It's called the Classic Lenses Podcast.
That weekly one, Simon?
We moved from weekly, and recently we decided that we're going to go to fortnightly. And as soon as we agreed to go fortnightly, we haven't done one for 3 weeks.
Yep.
So for those of us who aren't part of the greater British Commonwealth, what is fortnightly?
Every 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Wow. So
do you not have that term? Is that another new term? Fortnite.
Totally. Yeah. Most people will hear Fortnite and think of the video game.
See, I'm thinking,
Past that.
What does Fortnite and the video game mean anyway? Because I was thinking, what's that going to do?
I don't even know. I don't. No idea.
2 weeks.
Maybe they update the game every 2 weeks. I have no idea. Maybe there's a fort and you attack it nightly. I don't know. I've never played the game.
Yeah, fair enough.
Americans are weird, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah. The youth are weird, but we love them. So let's go for it.
Okay, so that's it. I forgot what I was talking about, so let's just go. And I'll say that our brilliant music is by Kevin MacLeod called Two Finger Johnny, and that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's show. So
as random as it was.
Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.